In this video, we'll learn how to perform a firmware update on your AAT. From time to time, Sunsight issues new firmware releases for the AAT, which typically contain new features, enhancements, and fixes. Firmware is similar to a computer program, only it is written into non-volatile memory, commonly referred to as ROM, or read-only memory. Once the firmware is updated, the AAT will keep the new program even through power cycles or battery changes. You can check to see what version of the firmware is installed on your AAT by looking at the left or vertical display screen while sitting at the main menu. The version string is structured as follows: the letter R followed by 3 digits, and then the letter V followed by 2 digits. The release number is represented by the digits following R, and the version number is represented by the digits that follow V. In our example, we are on Release 3, version 24. AATs currently running Release 2 of the firmware cannot update to either Release 3 or Release 4 of the AAT firmware. Do not attempt to update Release 2 firmware to a newer version. Please contact Sunsight Instruments to discuss your upgrade options. Antenna Line Profile Manager (APM) users should not update to Release 4 and above. Instead, APM users should update to the latest Release 3 version only, which at the time of creating this video was R003V24. For additional information on APM compatibility and update options, please contact Sunsight Technical Support. This video assumes that you are familiar with connecting your PC or laptop to the AAT via the onboard RJ45 Ethernet port. If you are not familiar with the process, please go watch the RJ45 Connecting Series video now. Be sure to print all reports for any recent captures before updating your firmware to the latest release. During the firmware update process, the AAT database containing profiles and captures will be erased, so you must print any reports before performing the update. You can also archive the current database by saving the AAT database file. If your AAT has a removable SD card, simply mount the SD card on your laptop or desktop and copy the file named algndata.aat to your archive location. Beginning with Release 3 version 12 of the firmware, the file can be transferred via the web interface as follows. Log in to the AAT via the web interface and proceed to the file transfer link. Starting with Release 4, the link is labeled File Management. Release 3 users can scroll down to the File Transfer section of the page and click the Open FTP window to see a listing of all the files on the SD card. Find the file named algndata.aat, click it, and it will be transferred to your computer. Release 4 and later users can simply choose the Download AAT File button to copy the AAT data file to your computer for archiving. As a registered customer on the Sunsight website, you will be notified of new firmware releases for your AAT as they are made available. If you have not already done so, be sure to create your free account at sunsight.com by clicking on the support link or button on the home page. In order to download the necessary components for performing a firmware update, you must have an account and a registered AAT. You can always refer to the Sunsight Instruments website at sunsight.com to check under the Support tab and see if there are notifications for new firmware releases. To download these firmware releases, however, you will need an account. To get started, go ahead and log into the support portal at sunsight.com. Point your browser to www.sunsight.com, then click the Support button at the top of the page. Enter your username and password for your account, and click the Login Now link, or just press the Enter or Return key on your keyboard. All registered products will be listed in the My Products area, one per line, with the product name, serial number, hardware version, and purchase date. Immediately to the right of the purchase date is a link entitled Details. click the Details link to find the latest downloads for that specific product. You need 3 things to perform a firmware update: the firmware update utility, the firmware release document, and the firmware itself. Go ahead and download these items now, and when you're ready, continue to the next step. To download each item, click on the Download link to the right of the item. As previously indicated, APM users should update to the latest Release 3 version, and non-APM users should update to the latest Release 4 version. To find out more about APM compatibility and update options, please contact SunSite Technical Support. In order to update the firmware in the AAT, you need to install the Firmware Update utility that you downloaded from the support portal. Locate the zip file that you downloaded, usually called auto update setup _R001V00, and open it. Then, double-click the setup.exe program and follow the on-screen prompts to install the software on your computer. When the software installation is complete, you will have a new program installed in the SunSite Instruments folder called Antenna Line Update. Navigate to the folder where you downloaded your new firmware release, and then unzip the contents. You may wish to move the firmware file, identified by the file extension .s19, to your desktop so that it's easy to find when you're ready to install it. Before installing a firmware update, you need to review the firmware release document to ensure that the new firmware is compatible with the AAT to be updated. Typically, the release document will identify compatible AATs for a given firmware version by listing ranges of serial numbers. Usually, this information is listed in the section entitled Software Impacts. You must ensure that the AAT has sufficient battery charge to run for a minimum of 2 hours or is connected to the battery charger supplied with the tool to avoid an unexpected shutdown during the update process. SunSite highly recommends that you connect the battery charger when performing updates. To prepare for the update process, establish connectivity to the AAT via the RJ45 port. Make sure that Wi-Fi is currently disabled, otherwise you cannot connect via the RJ45 port. If you are not familiar with connecting via the RJ45 port, please review that training video before proceeding. The first step in updating firmware is to erase the database containing profiles and captures. Be sure you have printed all reports and optionally archived your database as previously instructed before performing this step. Release 3 users should select the File Transfer link from the main menu of the web interface. Release 4 users will select the File Management link from the main menu of the web interface. Scroll down to the Erase All Contents section and click the Erase button to delete the current database. Keep in mind that only profiles and captures are deleted with Erase All Contents. Internal system data such as company information and AAT users will remain intact. This can take a couple of minutes to complete. Please be patient. Release 3 users will get an error message when the page is refreshed, alerting the user that the SD card is missing. Once you see this message, go ahead and log out from the AAT web interface. Release 4 users will receive a message in the browser window indicating that the erase is complete. When you see this message, you can log out from the AAT web interface. Now that the profile and capture database has been erased, you are ready to update the firmware. With the RJ45 cable still connected between the laptop and AAT, you can proceed with the firmware update. Users upgrading from firmware releases prior to Release 3 version 16 require a 2-step update process. This will be covered immediately following the standard update procedure in the Common Problems and Solutions section. Start the Antenna Line Auto Update program by navigating to the program group for SunSite Instruments and clicking the Antenna Line Auto Update program. Important: do not start multiple instances of this program. You will see the Antenna Line Auto Update program window with an IP address field and a file name field, along with several buttons. Do not use the Find button as it does not operate for this application. Enter the IP address displayed on the front of the AAT's vertical or left display. Typically, the IP address is 169.254.0.100. Click Browse and navigate to the location where you stored the new firmware file. Click on the file, then select Open. The window should look similar to the one being shown in the video. Click Update, and the firmware will download and install onto the AAT. The progress bar will denote the progress of the update procedure, although keep in mind that it will disappear for several seconds before the auto-update program will indicate success or failure for the update. Please wait until the pop-up window is displayed before continuing. When the auto-update program is complete and the successful update dialog is displayed, click OK and the AAT will reboot. A message will be displayed on the horizontal screen indicating that no database was found and a blank database was created. This is expected since we previously erased the profile and capture database. If the firmware detects an incompatible database, the new database created dialog will be displayed instead. This can happen in the case where the step to erase the database was accidentally skipped. Go ahead and press the OK soft key and the AAT will complete the startup process and will now show the new firmware release number on the vertical or left-hand display. Congratulations! You have completed the firmware update process for your AAT. If the update failed, please continue watching the video for troubleshooting information. Otherwise, you are ready to use your AAT with the new firmware. We'll see you on the next video. The two most common causes for failure are either multiple instances of the auto-update program being open, or the PC or laptop not connected to the AAT via the RJ45 Ethernet port. Be sure that only one instance of auto-update is running, and if you are still having problems, check your connection to the AAT web interface. Refer to the video on connecting your AAT via the RJ45 Ethernet port for additional information. Another less common cause for firmware update failures happens when updating from older firmware versions. AATs running firmware versions prior to R003 v16 will encounter an error when attempting to update to newer firmware releases. Immediately upon pressing the Update button, a dialog will appear indicating a problem while attempting to install the update. If you encounter this error condition, you will need to perform a two-part update in order to update your AAT so that it will be able to install newer firmware releases. Go to the support portal and log into the site. In your Downloads area, you will need to download the following file: Firmware, upgrades R003 v12 and earlier. Click on the Download link to the right of the item. Once you've downloaded the zip file, navigate to the location where you downloaded it, unzip it, and then drag the .s19 file to your desktop as shown in the video. Go back to the Auto Update window and click Browse, and navigate to the desktop to select the R003 v16 Part 1 firmware file. Click on the file and then select Open. The window should look similar to the one being shown in the video. Click Update and the firmware will download and install onto the AAT. The progress bar will denote the progress of the update procedure, although keep in mind that it will disappear for several seconds before the auto-update program will indicate success or failure for the update. Please wait until the pop-up window is displayed before continuing. When the auto-update program is complete, it will display a dialog as shown. Click the OK button and the AAT will reboot and will now show the new firmware release number on the vertical or left display. On the right display, you will see the following: Part 1 complete, load firmware Part 2 now. Now go ahead and install the newer firmware release that failed earlier using the same steps. When the auto-update program is complete and the successful update dialog is displayed, click OK and the AAT will again reboot and will now show the new firmware release number on the vertical or left-hand display. Congratulations! You have successfully updated your firmware to the new version.